The laughter came from the sideline. Not loud, not cruel, just confident enough to make a point. In that quiet European training gym, a veteran Greek national coach looked at a Filipino shooter and dismissed him with a smirk that had probably intimidated hundreds of players before. What happened next lasted less than 2 minutes. 10 shots, 10 perfect arcs, and a silence that changed the entire room. The gymnasium stood on the edge of a quiet European city where basketball was treated like a science. Tall glass windows allowed pale afternoon light to fall across the polished hardwood floor. Inside, the air carried the smell of rubber and varnish. European prospects moved through warm-up drills with mechanical discipline, while scouts whispered along the sideline. It was supposed to be an ordinary training session, but one visitor had quietly changed the atmosphere. He arrived without a crowd, without a media crew, and without any special announcement. The Filipino guard simply walked in with a duffel bag over his shoulder and nodded respectfully to the staff. The invitation had come from a European skills camp that occasionally welcomed international players. Most expected a demonstration of effort and hustle. Very few expected anything that might challenge the deeply rooted beliefs inside that gym. For decades, Filipino basketball had carried a familiar reputation abroad. Passionate, skilled, creative, but often described with a quiet limitation. Too small for elite European competition. Coaches across the continent believed their defensive size would neutralize that creativity easily. It was a belief repeated, so often it sounded like a fact. And on that afternoon, standing beneath towering European athletes, the Filipino shooter seemed to confirm every assumption. The Greek national coach stood near the scorer's table, arms folded against his chest. His resume stretched across decades of international tournaments, tactical clinics, and European League championships. He was known for valuing structure, discipline, and physical advantage. His teams defended with long wingspans and punishing rotations. When he glanced toward the Filipino guard stretching near the arc, his expression carried the calm confidence of a man certain about how this story would end. Warm-up drills began with simple shooting rotations. European prospects lined up along the wings, launching jumpers while assistants rebounded. The Filipino guard waited patiently at the end of the line. When his turn came, he lifted the ball with smooth rhythm and released a quiet shot that fell gently through the net. No celebration, just another repetition. But the Greek coach barely watched. He was studying the taller players instead. Then came the moment that shifted everything. One assistant asked the Filipino guard to step forward for a short demonstration of perimeter shooting. As he moved to the top of the arc, the Greek coach glanced sideways and allowed himself a small chuckle. It wasn't loud enough to echo across the gym, but it carried enough weight for those standing nearby to understand exactly what it meant. The chuckle traveled quickly through the quiet space. A few European players exchanged quick smiles. To them, the moment felt predictable. A smaller guard attempting to prove something inside a system built for length and strength. The Filipino shooter heard it too, but his expression did not change. He simply bounced the ball once, letting the sound echo across the hardwood. There are moments in sports where words stop mattering, where arguments dissolve and only execution remains. The Filipino guard understood this instinctively. Instead of responding to the coach or explaining anything, he looked toward the assistant holding the spare balls and asked for a simple drill. 10 shots from the top of the arc. No defender needed. Just 10 attempts. The Greek coach raised one eyebrow at the request. 10 attempts sounded harmless enough. A quick demonstration before returning to real training. He gestured casually toward the scoreboard clock and nodded for the drill to begin. His posture suggested polite tolerance rather than interest. The surrounding players leaned against the sideline, expecting a brief interruption before practice resumed. The first ball reached the shooter's hands with a soft chest pass. His feet set instantly, knees bent, elbow aligned with the rim. The release came in one smooth motion that seemed almost too relaxed for the moment. The ball climbed into the quiet air and dropped cleanly through the center of the net. No rim, just a pure sound of nylon. The second ball arrived quickly. Same rhythm, same balance, same gentle lift of the wrist. Again, the shot rose in a perfect arc before sliding through the net without touching metal. The sound echoed slightly louder this time because the gym had grown quieter. A few conversations along the sideline stopped mid-sentence. The Greek coach straightened slightly, but said nothing. By the third shot, something subtle had changed in the room. The Filipino shooter's rhythm began to settle into a steady pattern. Catch, bend, release, swish. Each motion looked identical to the one before it, as if the movement had been practiced thousands of times under different roofs and different skies across the Philippines. The 4-triple followed the same path, cutting through the air with quiet certainty. The ball never touched the rim. The net snapped once and fell still. A few European players stepped closer now, curiosity replacing their earlier amusement. The Greek coach tilted his head slightly, studying the mechanics more carefully. When the 5th shot fell through the net, the sound seemed louder than before. Not because the gym had grown noisier, but because every other sound had disappeared. Drills had paused. Sneakers no longer squeaked across the hardwood. Even the assistant coaches stood still, watching the same smooth shooting motion repeat itself with unsettling precision. The Filipino guard did not rush the moment. He received the 6th ball with the same calm posture, as if his quiet attention meant nothing. His shoulders remained loose, his breathing steady. The release floated upward again and dropped through the net with the same clean whisper. 6 consecutive triples. Still no rim. Across the court, the Greek coach's expression had begun to shift. The confident smirk that appeared earlier was gone. In its place was the analytical gaze of a strategist recalculating the situation in real time. He was no longer watching casually. He was studying the details. The 7th shot left the shooter's fingertips like a metronome tick. Perfect tempo, perfect arc, another pure swish. The sound carried across the gym like a quiet statement. Players who had been stretching moments earlier were now standing shoulder to shoulder along the sideline. The 8th ball arrived with slightly more speed, thrown harder by the assistant who now understood something unusual was happening. But the Filipino guard absorbed the pass effortlessly. His feet reset in a single fluid step. The release followed instantly. Again, the net snapped. 8 flawless triples. Now even the tallest European prospects leaned forward. Some crossed their arms. Others simply stared at the rim as if waiting for gravity to finally interfere. But gravity remained loyal to the shooter's rhythm. The ball obeyed his motion each time it left his hands. The 9th shot hung in the air slightly longer than the others. For a moment, the entire gym seemed to hold its breath. Then the ball slipped through the center of the net again. 9 consecutive triples. No rim, no backboard, just perfect nylon. The assistant bounced the final ball toward the shooter with careful respect. What had started as a simple demonstration now felt like a quiet test of belief. The Filipino guard caught the ball, glanced briefly at the rim, and released the shot with the same calm confidence. The 10th ball followed the same perfect arc as the others before dropping straight through the net. The sound echoed across the silent gym like the closing note of performance. 10 attempts, 10 perfect triples. The rim had never been touched. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The Filipino shooter lowered his hands and stepped back from the arc. His breathing remained steady, his face calm. The gym still carried the echo of those 10 quiet swishes. The Greek coach slowly unfolded his arms. His expression was no longer dismissive. It carried the focused respect of a professional who had just witnessed something rare. Without saying a word, he walked across the hardwood toward the shooter. When he reached the arc, the coach extended his hand. The gesture was simple but unmistakable. Not a critique, not a lecture, just acknowledgement. The Filipino guard accepted the handshake quietly. Around them, the European players exchanged thoughtful glances. The moment had shifted their understanding of what they had just seen. Skill, when repeated with that level of precision, ignored every argument about height. The Greek coach finally spoke in a calm voice meant only for the shooter. He did not mention the earlier laughter. He did not explain his assumptions. Instead, he nodded once and simply said the mechanics were exceptional. The Filipino guard thanked him politely and gathered his bag near the sideline. There was no celebration, no dramatic exit, just the quiet satisfaction of letting execution answer every doubt. Later that evening, the gym returned to its usual rhythm. Drills resumed. Scouts discussed prospects. But those who had watched the demonstration carried a new memory of what precision could look like. And somewhere in that quiet European facility, the echo of 10 perfect swishes remained a small reminder. In basketball, size can command attention, but discipline, rhythm, and skill can command respect.